Hey there, all you beautiful souls. I hope your day has been absolutely fantastic. It's a pleasure to have you back for yet another exciting episode of Naruto. Students of the Snake, Jiraiya and Tsunade were supposed to be the ones to watch over Naruto. What if that responsibility fell to Orochimaru instead? How will this affect both of them, and others? How will it affect Konoha? If you guys enjoyed this what if, comment down below and let me know. And go ahead and check out other what ifs in the channel. After watching this video, don't forget to pay a visit to the author of this captivating fanfiction and show them some love. You'll find the link waiting for you down in the description. Before we get into it though, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So let's start this video. After a long run and a boat ride from the southern edge of Land of Fire's coastline, Orochimaru and his charges had reached the Land of the Sea. He himself had set up a lab there to attempt some things away from Konoha to ensure some secrets didn't leak out in case of spies, plus some direct access to aquatic resources helped. He hadn't been there in years, so another researcher named Amachi had been running it in the meanwhile. "Is this where we're gonna stay, Ji-san?" Anko asked as she got out of the boat. Orochimaru shook his head. "Can't. This would be one of the first places they'd check for me. We're here to see just what was done while I was away. Then we'll head for our new home." "Where is that?" Karina asked. "I told you I'd tell you when we get there." Everyone got off the boat. Orochimaru and the two snakes led the 5 kids towards the hidden lab built by the shore, designed to look like a rundown building no one ever cared to renovate. At least on the surface. Inside it was everything a laboratory was supposed to be. Orochimaru had made it that way himself, using the old hiding in plain sight principle to make it so unlikely to be bothered with. And even if someone did bother to try and sneak inside, there were workers already inside who could get rid of them. Orochimaru led everyone inside while carrying Hinata. The poor girl had barely walked at all since she came into his company, and he suspected it was more because of shock or fear than her injuries. She said even less too, but she at least smiled when everyone tried to lift her spirits. Orochimaru led them through the corridors into the building, a faint trail of light bulbs guiding him into the research center. None of the kids asked where they were going since he already explained it to them, but they started to feel something was wrong here. Orochimaru sensed nothing, well used to surroundings such as this from decades of ninjahood. He came to a closed door that wasn't locked, so he opened it and stepped inside. Right away he wished he hadn't done that, to spare the children from the sight of the room's contents if nothing else. There were large glass containers that looked like oversized test tubes lined against one side of the room, each but 2 with a person inside it. The ages and genders varied, and out of all of them only one container had a glowing light on it, indicating something unique but not immediately obvious. There was also a table with various pieces of lab equipment and papers spread about. It looked like someone here had been doing some rather unorthodox human experimenting here, something the kids weren't supposed to see. "What is this place?" Karina asked. "This was a lab to see how we could improve our ninjas' physical capabilities," Orochimaru answered. "This wasn't what I was expecting though. Especially that, whatever that is." He then pointed to the glass tubes. "Are they even alive?" Yamato asked, having flashbacks to the experiments done on him for the past year, and being the only one to walk away alive from it. Orochimaru carefully looked over each one. The one tank with the glowing light had a monitor that showed a faint heartbeat. He then noticed all the tanks had monitors too, but this one was the only one actually working. And judging by the size of the person inside, the test subject was a very young child, making the pale sannin uneasy. "This one is. I'm going to get her out of there." He checked everywhere for a latch of some kind, and found one near the top of the tank. He pulled it, and the liquid inside the container drained out, letting the captive inside sink to the bottom. Once it was drained, the glass casing opened up and Orochimaru pulled the small person out onto the floor. This test subject was indeed a young child, a girl close to Naruto and Hinata's age who couldn't possibly be more than half a year older at most. She had long purple hair and a pale complexion, but not albino-ish like Orochimaru. She also didn't have any clothes on, so Orochimaru wrapped her in his jacket to keep her covered. In doing so, he saw a strange mark on her left shoulder that looked like 3 tomos inside a circle, resembling a seal of some sort. "Is she okay?" Naruto asked. "I think, but I'm not sure. Somebody did something weird to her." "Ah, Orochimaru-sama. Nice to have you drop by," a new voice said from a door to the left of the one everyone had entered from. Orochimaru turned to see a thin man with white hair and a long nose standing in a lab coat with his hands behind his back. "Amachi, what have you been doing here?" Orochimaru asked. "Why, exactly what you ordered me to do. Trying to find new ways to enhance ninja physical skills and terrain adaptability. This is not what I had in mind," Orochimaru snapped, pointing to the glass tubes and the unconsciousness purple-haired girl. "No, but it's even better. You see, I found a lost boy some time ago who has every unusual blood, with so much potential to be unleashed. Maybe even the first of a new Kekkei Genkai. Apparently he can actually shape-shift during times of bloodlust or stress, and to make it even better, with the right method, his blood can give those powers to others as well," Amachi told Orochimaru. Orochimaru admitted to himself the idea was an interesting one, but something about this bothered him. "And you experimented on children too? How could you?" Amachi shrugged. "Well, in order for it to work, the blood must be injected into the jugular, and if the subject survives the transfer, a mark appears there. For children the survival rate appears to be the highest, so I had to work with young ones. But I've been running kind of low, so I'm glad you brought me some more." Now Orochimaru was mad. "Don't even think about it. I'm trying to give these children a bright future, not one where others think less of them for whatever reason they have." Kogaiku and Sengo got in front of the kids defensively and became anaconda-sized. Amachi was unintimidated. "Don't you think they'd be better off with the gift I can give them? Think about it. A secondary source of chakra if the primary one runs dangerously low, and if the user gets close to death, a second stage is activated and the user gets the ability to transform into a second form, useful for terrain handling and combat purposes. What ninja wouldn't want that? You can't force this onto kids that don't want it," the sannin replied. The researcher shrugged. "They're children. They don't know what they want. I don't think I can let you keep doing this, Amachi," Orochimaru stated as he pulled out some explosive tags. He didn't light them since that might put the children in danger, but he did show them off. "Guess I'll have to show you how effective my work can be," Amachi said as he swiftly pulled out a syringe and threw it at the group. Before anyone could block it, the needle struck Anko in her jugular, making her scream, "Anko-chan." Everyone yelled as Orochimaru pulled the syringe out. Anko kept yelling and squirming on the floor. "It hurts. It hurts." The beginnings of the curse marks started to form around the puncture wound like a burn. While they were distracted with Anko's agony, Amachi took the opportunity to get several more syringes and hit all the remaining children in the jugular with great aim. All of them fell screaming and writhing as their blood burned internally. Kogaiku and Sengo wrapped around the long-nosed researcher and began constricting him tightly. Orochimaru stood in front of him. "Why the hell did you do that? And while we're at it, how were you able to?" "Well, you needed to be convinced my work has value. As for how, well, I guess you and your snake friends were just too slow to do anything about it. Forgive us, Orochimaru-sama. We were more focused on Anko-chan than the others for that brief moment," Sengo said regretfully. "I was at fault too for that. Amachi, tell me you have an antidote for this." Amachi tried to hold in a laugh but failed and laughed loudly. "Now why the hell would I create an antidote for a power-up? What do you think I am? Stupid?" Orochimaru was really disgusted with this man. Long ago, he thought he was rather insightful and quite possibly capable of opening new frontiers for Konoha's ninjas. Apparently that was true, but he used it for the wrong reasons. Had he been doing this to willing subjects or adults, Orochimaru might not have minded too much. In time he would have probably used this procedure to give the village's shinobi an extra edge against their enemies. But the sannin had several children under his care, and anybody who tried to hurt them was automatically an enemy. Kogaiku, Sengo, finish him off. The two snakes hissed happily and tightened their grip on him more and more until he was crushed thinner than a used-up toothpaste tube. Orochimaru checked on all the kids at once, first noting they had stopped screaming, just breathing deeply and asleep. On each one of their neck bases was a curse mark, 3 tomos inside a circle. Even Naruto had one. Damn, I thought maybe the Kyuubi's chakra could filter it out of his system. Wonder why it didn't. Truth was, at this point of time all the Kyuubi's chakra could do for Naruto was heal physical wounds and nothing more. That would change as he got older, but for now to do more would be dangerous to his health. So the curse mark was there to stay. Orochimaru felt there was only one thing he could do here. With the two snakes' help, he pulled all the children, even the extra girl, back outside and went in to recover any info regarding this curse mark before setting the place on fire with explosive tags. He didn't see any of Amachi's assistants inside, and while that bothered him, he figured it was probably for the best. Less trouble to deal with. He then got them back on the boat and headed back for the mainland. Night came and Anko was the first to recover, sitting upright around a campfire. She looked around to see Orochimaru sitting on a log watching over them all with Kogaiku and Sango, and also the new girl who seemed to be awake already. What happened, Ji-san? It's a long story, Anko-chan. I'll tell you when the others wake up too so I don't have to repeat it. Orochimaru told her, then offered her a piece of dango he bought in the last town. Want some? She eagerly took it, but ate slowly. Hi, I'm Isaribi. The new girl said to Anko. Sorry you had to get the seal too. Seal? Anko asked, then her eyes darted to the mark on the other purple-headed girl's shoulder. Anko tenderly touched her shoulder and felt the flesh was soft and painful to touch, making her pull her fingers back and wince. What happened to me? Orochimaru sighed. I'm sorry, Anko-chan, but that man gave you something bad and I don't know how to get rid of it. How bad? Bad enough that some people could call you a monster for it. Anko shrugged. They already do that. What else is new? Well, according to what I've been reading, this mark gives you a chakra boost when you run low, but it means you're more likely to act violently when that happens. And there's a second stage involved if you almost die, giving you the ability to transform into some kind of creature when you need to. Orochimaru explained. Anko blinked in surprise. And there's nothing you can do about it, he shook his head. Maybe I can get Jiraiya to seal its effects, but I haven't seen him in years so I can't promise that. Anko then looked over Naruto and the others, who started showing signs of waking up soon. Then I'll use it to defend my Ototo. If I'm stuck with this, might as well give it a good use. Anko-chan, I wouldn't. Orochimaru started to protest, then thought it over, and slowly nodded. If that's what you want. The others woke up and Orochimaru explained to them what happened and what they involuntarily acquired. Not surprisingly, they were unhappy, but they had the same thoughts about it as Anko did. Orochimaru hoped that they wouldn't come to regret this later on. About 3 weeks after leaving Konoha, Orochimaru had finally reached his destination, a hidden underground chamber in Land of Rice Paddies. In that time he had kept a careful eye on all the children with him, still upset at what had happened to them in Land of the Sea. The only reason it happened at all was because he hadn't been expecting it the first time and he was occupied the next time. Another reason might be that the syringes Amachi used were designed like senbon needles more than standard syringes with automatic injection features built in, and he did always have great aim when it came to projectiles. Orochimaru cursed himself, wishing he had only been more prepared for the long-nosed researcher to actually try something. But he wasn't, and now all the kids in his care might suffer from it. So far he hadn't seen anything negative from what he dubbed the curse mark outside an occasional brief flash of pain. He wondered if that was meant to encourage the person to use it, or just a nasty side effect. The scroll with all the info regarding it didn't say much about it. It did however come with several sealed up samples of the blood-based formula used to give one the mark and abilities. Orochimaru kept it around in the hopes of someday reverse engineering it and ridding the kids of it. Or at the very least, have a better understanding of how it works. For the time being he ignored that and went inside the hideout. Since it was quite dark underground, he used a fire jutsu to light the candles left on the walls to illuminate the place better. This place reminds me of those haunted houses you see in movies, Kabuto stated. Why did we come here? Karina asked, eyes darting around as if looking for something. A long time ago, me and my teammates found this abandoned place during an A-rank mission that was taking longer than we expected it to. We used it to hide ourselves and ambush our enemies. Afterwards, we agreed this would be our secure location to come to if we needed to go somewhere private. So only Jiraiya or Tsunade would think to come here, the one adult present explained. Are they coming? Naruto asked, not knowing who they were or his connection to them. Orochimaru sadly sighed. No, they aren't. They don't know I'm here and I'd rather they don't find out yet. If I saw either of them soon I'd be very mad at them. How come? All the children asked. Orochimaru wasn't going to like this, but knew it needed to be done. Naruto, I wasn't supposed to be the one to watch over you all these years. Jiraiya and Tsunade were. Naruto looked surprised. Then why didn't they? Orochimaru shrugged. I'm not entirely sure. I personally think Jiraiya just didn't want to juggle you and his work, so he chose his work first, and Tsunade was more interested in doing her own thing than taking some responsibility. If they have other reasons, I'd love to hear them, but that's all I can assume for now. Several of the kids frowned at hearing this, but Naruto just hung his head. You okay, Naruto? Said Blonde lifted his head showing off a grin, with some small tears in the corners of his eyes. I'm fine, Ji-san. At least you're here for me. Always will, kid. You can count on it. How long we gonna be here? Hinata asked. Not too long. Just long enough for me to check up an old idea of mine and see if we can go ahead with it. Orochimaru told them with a grin, making them all feel better. Later that evening, Orochimaru was seated at an old desk looking over some old papers he brought with him, with some storage scrolls next to him as well. Enko, Kurenai, Isaribi, Kabuto, and Yamato were currently looking around the place to get a better feel for it and make sure there were no unwelcome surprises there, with Kogaiku tagging along in case there were some. Hinata was currently taking a nap with Sango curled up to be the pillow, resting peacefully. Orochimaru was glad to see that since while the girl had been healing she kept having bad dreams, presumably about what had hurt her in the first place. Naruto was awake and trying to see what Orochimaru was interested in at the moment. Whatcha doing, Ji-san? Going over something I haven't in a long time. Like what? You probably wouldn't understand. It's boring grown-up stuff. The snake sannin answered. Then why are you doing it if it's boring? Naruto innocently asked. Boring for you, not me. And hopefully, not the daimyo of this country either. Orochimaru corrected. Why? Let's just say that if he agrees with me, then we'll be secure for years to come. Orochimaru explained as best he could without revealing too much. I can't tell you more than that, sorry. Naruto looked upset but didn't argue, and decided to just pace around until the others returned. Excuse me, Daimyo-sama, but you have some visitors. A guard at the place of the daimyo of Land of Rice Paddies told the ruler as he entered the throne room. Visitors? I'm not expecting anyone. Who are they? The ruler of the country asked. He was tall, thin, with brown hair beginning to gray, and a small beard, wearing a black royal kimono with a pattern for a rice farm sewn onto it. The one adult present claims to be one of the sannin of Land of Fire. His physical description matches that of the snake summoner, and the fact that he has talking snakes with him adds to that confirmation. The daimyo rubbed his chin in thought. Interesting, a sannin wishes to see me. Wonder what for. He then caught something else. Why did you say the one adult present? He has several children in his care, Daimyo-sama. 7 to be exact. The guard answered. Why would he bring children here? I don't know, but I feel that may be part of whatever he seeks an audience with over. The daimyo thought over it some more. Very well, let them enter. Tell the guards they should keep watch but not overly hostile until any threat is apparent. The guard nodded and left the chamber. A moment later Orochimaru entered, followed by Naruto, Hinata, Isaribi, Enko, Kurenai, Kabuto, Yamato, and the 2 snakes. Sannin-san, I presume? The ruler asked. Orochimaru nodded. My name is Orochimaru, for your convenience. If you don't mind, may I ask for you to remove your summons, as they may be viewed as a threat here. Orochimaru shook his head. That is no negotiable, Daimyo-sama. These 2 are here to protect my 2 godchildren and their friends, and I'm not getting rid of their security while in new territory. As long as nobody moves to strike these children, you have nothing to fear from these 2 serpents. The daimyo seemed reluctant but later nodded. With that out of the way, to what do I owe the pleasure of this visit from one of the most esteemed shinobi in the known world? To be direct, I wish to start a hidden village here. The ruler flinched in surprise, never expecting to hear something like that. A hidden village? Here? Don't get me wrong. I've been hoping to get one started myself so all the shinobi clans here have a place to live and practice their art. But why would you be interested in such a thing, especially considering the sannin are connected to Konoha and Land of Fire? I've wiped my hands off that place, and wish to have a new home for those in my care. Konoha is not fit for them. And since I'm more familiar with this country than any other, besides Land of Fire obviously, I could easily call this one my next home. Also, I don't think I could join a hidden village that already exists without alerting Konoha to my presence, and thus undoing all my efforts to guard these kids. Orochimaru explained. The daimyo looked confused. You make it sound like Konoha is a threat to these kids. I find that hard to believe. Orochimaru gave a brief look over the kids, who looked up at him, staying silent as they had been told to do. He then turned back to the ruler of the country. Daimyo-sama, what would you do if I told you each one of these children, to some degree, some more than others, had their human rights violated? The daimyo looked mortified. Violated? Someone would do such a thing to children? He then took a deep breath and closed his eyes, recomposing himself, before opening them again and clasping his hands together. You have my attention. Now explain. Orochimaru grinned lightly, but then lost it as he began his story. Well, to start off lightly, a man named Danzo that I knew back in Konoha helped fund research to improve shinobi abilities. Apparently that was a front for involuntarily subjecting orphans, and even kids with families if he could get away with it, to tests and attempts to give them Kekkei Genkais. Most did not survive, but I have 3 survivors here with me. Kabuto and Yamato raised their hands to indicate themselves, but Kurenai did not. He patted her on the shoulder though. This girl here so far was not actually used yet, but next in line for a test. As far as we can tell, that is. It is possible he may have done something to her, and she blocked out the memory. Kurenai looked frightened now. Orochimaru then got behind Isaribi. This girl here was kept captive inside a glass tube in an island lab where a man I once thought of as a respectable colleague did the same thing as Danzo, just more specialized. Making me suspect the two were in cahoots. Anyway, he forced a potentially lethal ability onto her, and did the same with all the children here. I wasn't expecting him to do something like that, so I couldn't react quick enough to stop him. Pardon me, Orochimaru-sama. The daimyo interjected. Are you telling me all these children had a Kekkei Genkai forced onto them? The sannin nodded. How bad is this Kekkei Genkai that's gotten you worked up? According to what I've looked over, it's not entirely without benefit, but also not without cost. Once acquired, the victim is in a lot of pain for several days, with the majority of the pain lasting only 4 minutes. After that, it's more like a pulled muscle that won't let you forget it's there, and it sort of enhances one's berserker tendencies when in a tight spot, meaning they may put themselves in unnecessarily risky situations. The daimyo thought it over. Is that the worst of this? Because, forgive me if I'm wrong, this doesn't sound as tragic as you make it out to be. The older kids frowned at hearing this, but Orochimaru held out his arms. Settle down, guys, he doesn't know the whole story yet. He then turned to look at the daimyo again. Well, onto a larger issue before I drop a bombshell. This girl here, indicating Hinata, was kidnapped from her home at night, and for some reason village security couldn't stop it. He suspected that was his fault for setting 2 fires that night. I rescued her, and found signs of physical abuse from before the kidnapping took place. She doesn't like to talk about it, but from what I've heard her family is full of child beaters. The daimyo silently gasped and looked to Hinata for confirmation or denial. Her frightened, crying face trying to hide in the adult's legs said enough for him. And what else? You indicated something worse, Orochimaru sighed. Here's where Konoha gets bad as a whole, daimyo-sama. You see, legally I only have one godchild, this young girl, indicating Anko, but since this boy's godparents, indicating Naruto, were too busy enjoying themselves to take responsibility for him, I volunteered to watch him until they decided to shape up and take responsibility. For 3 years, this young boy has been picked on by no less than 90% of Konoha. I'd say 80%, but that would be giving them the benefit of the doubt, and I can't do that anymore. Sometimes kids get bullied by other kids. That's natural. The daimyo commented. Orochimaru narrowed his eyes. I didn't say he was victimized by just kids. I said the whole city. Adults too. If the daimyo had been holding anything just then, he would have dropped it. Adults bullying a 3-year-old? Why? How? For how? They pretty much had an attack-on-sight mindset regarding him. They wouldn't kill him, probably because I got there in time to stop it. And when I was there, they would treat him like he was Kami's biggest mistake, and sometimes my presence wouldn't deter them. I haven't left him unguarded by myself, or one of these snakes in about 2 years because they'll take any chance to make him wish he was never born. There were times I did. Naruto quietly mumbled, but everyone heard it and the hurt in his voice. Hinata and Anko, the closest ones to him, hugged him to make him feel better. Isaribi wanted to, but didn't see any room for her to get a hold of him. Orochimaru stayed silent for a brief moment after that, but then continued. Anyway, the townspeople, mostly civilians but some shinobi too, several deemed honorable by the populace, took every chance they could to make Naruto's life hell. They did the same thing to my first godchild too, just because she's associated with him, and the adults in the village told their children to stay away from both of them or hurt them as much as possible, thinking kids could get away with what the parents couldn't. The daimyo scowled. And what possible explanation could they have for this atrocious behavior? I can't say it in front of the kids as they are not ready to handle that information yet. Orochimaru told him, then turned to the kids. If you all would like to go outside and see the courtyards for a moment, you can now. They thanked him and went outside, with Kogaiku and Sango following. Before Orochimaru could speak up, the daimyo did. On second thought, it doesn't matter. There is no excuse good enough to justify what you've just told me. Daimyo-sama, what I'm about to say is Konoha's deepest secret, one that's illegal to talk about. But since I'm not a Konoha nin anymore, their laws don't apply to me, so I can tell you and the kids when they can handle it. You see, our previous Hokage sealed the rampaging Kyuubi no Kitsune inside the blonde boy, and almost everyone holds him accountable for what the fox did 3 years ago. The daimyo's hands trembled in rage, and then he stood up and called for a messenger. Inform everyone that we will no longer hire Konoha shinobi for any work. If they ask why, tell them I've reason to question their rationality, and say no more on the subject. The messenger nodded and left. So you'll help us? Orochimaru asked. Tell me more about your proposal for a new hidden village. The daimyo said with a grin. In a flat valley and land of rice paddies, construction began on a secret project. Well, that depends on how one defines the word secret. In one way, it was no secret at all, as anyone could see the construction taking place if they happened to be in the area. It was simply a new town being built to provide homes for a growing population and maybe provide more farmland too. Nothing out of the ordinary except some defensive walls and guarded passageways in and out of the area, but those were deemed needed to make it more secure until completion. But on the other hand, the reason of the construction, along with half of it, were completely unknown to anyone outside the country, and many inside it too. Yes, providing homes was a big part of why this town was being built. But these were homes for shinobi, and no one not involved would suspect a thing. And that was exactly what the planners wanted. Orochimaru and the daimyo of Land of Rice Paddies stood in front of a completed building looking over everything in their layout designs. The kids were back at the palace being watched over by the snakes, and some trustworthy caretakers. So the sannin was freed to be away for the moment. Things are looking good so far, aren't they, Orochimaru-sama? The daimyo asked. He nodded, smiling. Yes, indeed they are. I'm glad I keep that little pet project of mine around now. Back when Orochimaru had been an academy student, one of the assignments had been for all the kids to design a hidden village if they were the ones who made it. His did well, but overall none of the class had the right idea regarding what was essential for a hidden village. Some students had been frivolous and designed a metropolis designed more fit for civilians, while others missed out on several details mandatory for making the village be considered hidden or operable. After the assignment was over, he kept the design with him and spent years trying to improve upon it, mostly to satisfy his own curiosity and creative urges. Now he had a chance to actually do something with the idea. He was no architect, but a real one with shinobi experience would be proud of his concept. On the surface, the whole village would look like a completely normal civilian village. Walls would be around for defense against threats, both natural and man-made, but that wasn't suspicious since conflict was common and several civilian cities had that feature now. There would be suburbs, apartment complexes, hospitals, hotels, schools, dojos and gyms, parks, shopping centers, and entertainment centers. A casino and a public bathing area were added in too, as sort of an homage to the other two sannin when Orochimaru initially worked on the design, and saw no real reason to take them out. But under the surface, that was the beauty of all this. Underneath the city, and under the sewage system too, were secret chambers, bunkers, and hallways for shinobi to learn and train in. There was even a hidden academy and several training centers scattered everywhere, each designed to help in a particular area. Some in taijutsu, some in kenjutsu, some in ninjutsu, and some in genjutsu. This way, the shinobi of this village could train to their heart's content without fear of someone from the outside ever finding them, or even knowing what was going on. The dojos could be used too to get them used to training above ground, as long as they didn't use ninjutsu there. There was also an idea that the shinobi here only wear their hitaite on the job, preferably out of town, rather than walk around in public so visitors wouldn't notice. With this in mind, it would be the one true hidden shinobi village, by virtue of being hidden in plain sight. The daimyo had been satisfied with the conceptual design and provided what he considered the perfect location for the village. A flat stretch of land big enough to hold Konoha if it had to, surrounded by mountains to the north and northeast. A gorge with a rapid river bordered the complete west, and a forest provided the remaining boundary. The mountains were not completely impassable, but a route being worked on would make it more convenient. A bridge was being constructed over the gorge, and 2 routes were being paved through the forest. Since the village was not trying to look like a hidden shinobi village, they needed these routes to make it more believable. They were being made in a compass fashion to make them easier to monitor those should something go amiss. Construction might take some time since we aren't letting too many in on this, the daimyo commented. So far the only help they had were from construction companies and shinobi with masonry skills who intended to settle down here when finished. If we could let another village in on this, then maybe things can go faster, and we could have a ready ally. Reasonable, but who? And do I really need to say Konoha is not an option? Orochimaru responded. Of course not. I was thinking more along the lines of Taki, Hoshi, or Kusa. The daimyo told him. Orochimaru arched an eyebrow. Them rather than Suna or Kiri or something? Well, the 5 great shinobi villages might have a lot of power backing them, but the lesser ones are more likely to bond with a fellow small village. Allying ourselves with them will make forming alliances with other villages easier too. And they're eager for business since they're often overlooked by clients in favor of the bigger ones. The sannin nodded. Maybe, but having one of the major villages help might be a good thing. Especially if we need the manpower against Konoha. This time the daimyo arched an eyebrow. Do you intend to go to war with your old home? At the moment, no. However, if they happen to discover my group is here, Naruto-kun and Enko-chan in particular, I'm sure they will cause trouble over it. And I'd rather be prepared for the worst. Suna would be the best option as they're the closest. IWA a close second, but I'd rather not risk their involvement either if I can help it. Because of young Naruto, am I right? The daimyo asked, having been told about Naruto's heritage to explain his situation better. Yes. Until I'm certain of their overall attitude towards Minato, I can't verify if they would be a threat or not. Most likely they are since Minato did not die that long ago, and one could not ask without raising suspicions they would look into. It might be years before anyone can. Orochimaru stated. Reasonable. The daimyo mused. So shall we stick with Suna and maybe 1 or 2 of the smaller villages? Let's see how much we can do on our own first. The sannin suggested. Besides, the underground network has to be completed first, and it's best if only our forces has a good feel for that area. What we really need are some established clans to settle down here. Maybe some civilians and their kids will be willing to learn to become shinobis, but some existing clans and Kekkei Genkai will give us some credibility when we make ourselves known. Why not go around other places to find people and families that have nowhere to go? Not fugitives that would sell you out, but desperate people with something to prove and willing to settle down somewhere. You know, like you were when you came to me. Orochimaru thought about it and shrugged. Why not? Orochimaru later made it back to the palace and gathered the kids together. Okay everyone, I'm going to be going on a trip for a bit to try and find us more allies. You all will be staying here, with Kogaiku and Sango watching over you with Daimyo-sama. Do as they say. Everyone nodded, and he handed Enko something that looked like a paper bomb. Hopefully nothing bad will happen, but just in case something does happen, put some blood on this. That'll summon Manda to protect you guys, but it'll only work once. Do not use it for anything short of an emergency, got it? Enko nodded and pocketed the paper. Good. I'll be back as soon as I can. Stay safe. With that, the snake sannin left for parts unknown. So what do we do in the meantime? Kabuto asked after the adult who watched over them these past few weeks left. I guess we train. Any better ideas? Enko asked. Are you sure that's a good idea? Kurenai wondered, gingerly touching her curse mark. Ever since they got it, the kids were afraid to train, thinking it would control them if they trained. We've got to learn to deal with it sooner or later. It's not like they're just gonna vanish with soap and water, Nai-chan. Enko replied, and if anything happens the rest can stop them, right? Naruto asked. Exactly, Otuto. Enko stated. Rather than keep up the discussion, Yamato just went right to doing push-ups, and Naruto, Hinata, and Isaribi joined in. Enko joined too, and after a moment so did Kabuto and Kurenai. Nothing bad happening so far regarding their marks. And hopefully it would stay that way. Orochimaru had been traveling for 2 days now, not entirely sure just where he should be going. He couldn't go right to an established ninja village and ask if anyone there wanted to move. Clans weren't allowed to do just up and do that for security reasons. And he couldn't go up to bandits and rogues making them offers since their very nature was based more on greed than loyalty. The best idea he had was going to civilian towns and asking if there were any families with shinobi potential that wanted to take the chance to use it. So now here he was, in a random town and land of fire, taking a break and having a drink before going out again. Why are so many ideas easier said than done? He asked himself. I've been trying to figure that out myself. Another guy's voice said behind him. Orochimaru immediately recognized it, and slowly turned around to see Jiraiya, along with Tsunade and a brunette he didn't recognize. Oh, hi dope. What brings you here? That's my line team. Jiraiya told him. Orochimaru, we came to help out. That's what teammates do. Tsunade said gently. A little late, don't you think? He paused to take another gulp. Hey Tsunade, you actually took time off from your eternal binge to see me? I don't know if I should be flattered or worried. I heard from Sensei what happened and I got a hold of Tsunade here. We figured you might want some friendly company. Jiraiya explained. Orochimaru arched an eyebrow. What exactly did Sensei say? In his words, Jiraiya cleared his throat. He said that you had a tragic lose and took it rather unwell, and just vanished. He also told me to tell you that he hopes you'll come back when you can get yourself sorted out. Orochimaru glared. That's it? Word for word? Jiraiya nodded, and Orochimaru clenched his fists. That is one of the most apathetic things I've ever heard. We're sorry for you, Orochi. Tsunade butted in. We heard you lost your goddaughter and your work to some maniac. But you shouldn't take it out on Sensei or the village, and I wouldn't if both had done more to help Anko-chan and Naruto instead of just… Wait, did you just say Naruto? Jiraiya asked, caught off guard. The snake sannin nodded. Yeah, Minato's son. The kid you two were supposed to watch over but never did. Who did you think was watching over him all this time? The toad and slug sannins exchanged a worried look before turning back to their teammate. Orochimaru, Sensei told me he was killed just after the ceiling. Couldn't handle the strain. Orochimaru wanted to puke, and it had nothing to do with the alcohol in his system. He told you Naruto died? Jiraiya nodded. Yeah, and then I told Tsunade. You mean he didn't? Orochimaru shook his head. Nope, he's still alive. Not that Konoha wants him to be. I faked his and my goddaughter's death so I could get them away from that child-beating shitstain of a village. Tsunade started to cry. My godson is alive? Can I please see him? Orochimaru thought about it. I'll let you two see him, under a few conditions. First, you can't breathe a word of what I'm doing to Sarutobi, period. They nodded without a hint of protest, even Tsunade's assistant. Second, you need to help me find some trustable ninjas and clans to make allies with and are able to move about, so I can protect the kids better. For the record, I learned that the current Mizukage is about to issue a Kekkei Genkai purge of Kiri. More like some kind of genocide if you asked me. Jiraiya said quietly. Orochimaru smirked. Then if we get there first and offer them solace, we can get the people and numbers I need. Good, so let's head out tomorrow for Kiri. But I want to see Naruto. Tsunade protested. You waited 3 years, you can wait another week or so. I'm getting these shinobi first so Naruto won't be such a target anymore. You make it sound like horrible things have happened to him. Tsunade's apprentice commented. The look on the pale sannin's face disturbed them all. I'll tell you more about that tomorrow. That way none of you will be unable to sleep tonight. So, are you gonna help me or not? The three sannin along with Shizune had reached Land of Water, with no intention of staying there for long. They would get this little task over with, hopefully with good results, and go where they really wanted to be, Land of Rice Paddies and with Naruto. Jiraiya and Tsunade had heard what had happened in their absence, and were ashamed of themselves, even though they were not entirely at fault for their absence. Still, that didn't make it any easier on their consciousnesses. When they woke up the morning after a chance reunion with Orochimaru, Jiraiya and Tsunade were all ears about what had happened to Naruto. Shizune was too, even though she never met the boy, just his mother through Tsunade. None of them liked what they heard. Flashback. Okay Orochimaru, tell us everything you wouldn't last night about Minato's son. Tsunade demanded first thing in the morning. The three sannin were seated in a hotel room at the moment on one of the beds. Well, where to start? Naruto's alive but has been hurt repeatedly his whole life. Since you two weren't there to watch over him, I took your place and just couldn't take it anymore and took him away from there. I faked his death to ensure no one could come after him. Why don't you give us the unsummarized version? Jiraiya asked. I will, but first you two have some things I want you to tell me too. Orochimaru insisted. You first, Jiraiya. Even if Sensei told you Naruto has been dead all these years, why is it in 3 years you didn't stop to visit me in the village? Even to chat? If you had, then you'd see the truth then. What excuse do you have for not doing that? Jiraiya tried to steel himself, but slumped and sighed wearily. I wish I could give you one, but I can't. You know I've never been one for visiting just for pleasantries. I just figured you were content in what you were doing, and interrupting you just for a quick hide didn't seem worth it. One question though, if Sensei told us Naruto was dead, what has he been telling you about us? Nothing about Tsunade, except he couldn't get a response from her. But he said you were prioritizing your work and personally felt Naruto was better off with me anyway. Orochimaru explained. Why would he lie so much? Shizune asked. Orochimaru shook his head slowly. I have no idea. He did several things to help Naruto out, but why would he set us up like this? I just wish I knew. I would have done something about it, Tsunade said quietly, full of regret. There was little you could do that I couldn't, Tsunade, except heal him better. And with how he got hurt, he would have needed it. The snake sannin mentioned. Tsunade was afraid to ask how bad the damage was, but luckily she didn't have to. He's been burned, stabbed, cut, hit with rocks, punched, kicked, almost drowned or thrown off buildings. All more than once, and all within the first 3 years of his life. Tsunade teared up and buried her head in her knees. I've ever heard of anything so monstrous in my life, and I'm a veteran shinobi. That's it. I'm officially and completely severing all ties to Konoha from here on out. I'm going to confront Sensei about this and most likely do the same thing, Jiraiya added forcefully. Inspiration struck Orochimaru just then. Actually, Jiraiya, I've got an idea for you. You see, I'm working on a certain project to help my kids and could probably use Tsunade to check over them regularly. You can too, but maybe you could also play a part for our sensei. Let me guess, you want me to be a double agent? Jiraiya stated. Exactly. The snake sannin answered. Whatever info you give sensei, you give us too. And this way, we can find out if Konoha's doing anything suspicious. For example? Jiraiya asked for clarification. Well, like whether or not anyone's trying to find Naruto. Or maybe they have hostile intentions towards the new hidden village. Anything that could prove more risk for Naruto later on. I agree, it's a good plan, Tsunade claimed. Jiraiya sighed. Alright, it won't be easy, but I'll try. But if I don't like what Sensei says when I ask why he lied, then the deal's off. Orochimaru nodded. Well, I think that's enough for now. I'm going to be heading towards Land of Water soon. Wanna come along? And flashback. The trip had taken them a while, but they reached their destination. Jiraiya was infuriated the whole time while Tsunade appeared downright depressed. Orochimaru had a good idea why for both. Jiraiya felt betrayed by Sarutobi and pissed at himself for never taking the time to confront Naruto's status from someone else. Even if he did trust the old man, he probably should have confirmed this info with another. So much more could have been done on Naruto's behalf if Jiraiya had known he was alive. And as for Tsunade, she felt like a failure to Minato and Kushina since she hadn't even tried to do anything after Jiraiya came to her with grim news 3 years ago. She had gone to great lengths to care for Dan's niece Shizune, but hadn't gone to be with Kushina when the due date was near, and thus could have helped him as planned. Tsunade felt just plain horrible over that. Finding their way to Kiri wasn't too hard for them, mostly because they had been there before for their own Chunin exams years ago. Not to mention the fog was a dead giveaway they were heading in the right direction. When they got to the edges of the village, they hid in some trees rather than just enter. Shizune was currently hiding in a small den in the ground they could get back to later. Jiraiya summoned 2 small toads. You two check out the area. Let me know if you spot anything hinting to killing a lot of the residents. The toads departed and entered the misty village. You sure it'll be that obvious? Tsunade asked. You can't have whole clans be slaughtered and keep it a secret, Jiraiya commented. They waited for a while, but not as long as they initially expected when the toads came back. We saw a ton of people tied to posts being kept in some sort of prison yard, as if they were going to be executed. Most of them looked unconscious and none smelled dead, but we couldn't get close enough to confirm that with the guards around there. Jiraiya shared a look with his teammates. Not very discreet. I know this village has taken a turn towards being more vicious lately, but I figured they wouldn't make a spectacle out of something like this. Well, let's go see them ourselves and make them an offer, Orochimaru suggested. There are guards posted just so you know, so it won't be that simple. The toad told them. We've got our ways, Orochimaru commented with a grin. When the sannin snuck towards the wall surrounding the prison yard, Tsunade summoned 2 slugs and had them approach the nearest guards. Once the guards saw the gastropods, they spewed some non-lethal toxins at them, knocking them unconscious for about 2 hours. Tsunade and her slugs repeated this one more time on another pair of guards to make their entry less noticeable. Once they felt confident, the 3 shinobi sneaked inside. There they saw numerous people of various ages and genders tied up like they were going to be crucified. Some of them even had blindfolds on, implying they had dojutsus. There were even a few children and at least one pregnant woman tied up here, showing that the current Mizukage was completely apathetic to them all. None of them looked dead, but few of them even looked conscious now. "Dear Kami," Tsunade gasped. "Why are they doing such a thing?" For some reason, the Mizukage began spreading anti-Kekkei Genkai propaganda here, claiming it's a crime of nature and a sign of demonic heritage. Considering I once heard that Kekkei Genkais originated from Jinchurikis, I could understand that. But they've gone so far as to make it a witch hunt here. Personally, I believe that the Mizukage is intimidated by them all. Jiraiya quietly thought out loud, "Well, I don't care about that. Let's see if they're willing to hear us out," Orochimaru stated. He then carefully and quietly approached one of the conscious prisoners, followed by his teammates. "Who are you? What do you want?" the prisoner quietly asked, more out of fear than anything else. This one was a man with a white shirt, a navy blue hakama, and no footwear on. His hair was blue-tinted black and cut really short. "I'm here to make all you an offer. Take it and you'll live like you always have been. Refuse and you'll stay here," Orochimaru answered. "What are you, a devil? Like I really have an option when it comes to that. Just what's in it for you?" "I'm creating a new hidden village, and hoping to find some people to live in it with skills to offer. I'm sure at least some people here would rather live there than die here," the snake sannin told him. "Wait, did you just say you could save us?" A woman with long brown hair who looked like she was playing dead suddenly spoke up. The sannin nodded. "Please take me and my daughter out of here. I don't want to die." A few other voices rose and announced their desires to flee, all keeping quiet to avoid unwanted attraction from the guards. "Okay, we'll cut you all down from these posts. Those that want to escape with us get behind us, and those that would rather stay here can." "Fair enough?" Jiraiya asked. There were no objections. With the help of some shadow clones, the sannin were able to untie everyone in the prison yard. Apparently none of the captives decided it was better to remain in Kiri and risk delaying execution, so all 214 prisoners unanimously decided to become citizens of the newest shinobi village in the land of rice paddies, far away enough to ensure their safety from Kiri's influence, and enough people to make the new village have a good start. Before the sannin and the prisoners could escape the prison yard, some of the guards spotted them. 3 guards with Kiri Kitayatesh stood at the gate brandishing swords. "What the hell is going on here?" one of them shouted. The first prisoner the sannin spoke to rushed over to these guards and activated his Kekkei Genkai. Apparently he had one that made his skin become like armor, and he had some pent-up rage to release now. Covered entirely in his armor, he punched each one of them and broke their swords as they tried to strike him. His punches were like being hit with a hammer, making all 3 guards collapse. When done, he turned to face everyone else. "We gotta hurry. No time to be sneaky about it. So let's just scram." With that, everyone ran out of there like a frightened herd of wildebeests. Tsunade made sure to grab Shizune before they left her behind. More guards were alerted and tried to stop them, but those with active battle-ready Kekkei Genkais fought back mercilessly. Orochimaru had many snakes the size of giant anacondas defend them too. Tsunade had some slugs spray various venoms at their antagonizers, and Jiraiya had some small toads spit out oil to make pursuit difficult and to burn anyone unlucky enough to get covered in it. Oddly, at least one of the guards actually helped them out by showing them the best way out of the village. He was tall with a bandaged face and gray camouflage pants on, and he wielded a large black sword single-handedly. He was apparently one of the assigned shinobi who disagreed with the Mizukage's orders and didn't want to stay under his authority anymore. He was also probably one of the few who would join them that didn't actually have a Kekkei Genkai, but not the only one. A few normal people joined the escape too, fearing the Mizukage would target them later on for some reason. By the stroke of midnight, the 3 sannin and over 200 people formerly of Kurigakure had reached the shore and got onto several ships already arranged for them to leave in. Before they could be pursued any further, Orochimaru had some sea snakes take care of anyone who might try to follow them to the mainland. As a result, they reached land of rice paddies undisturbed within 4 weeks. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below and turn on the bell notification, and also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.